If you believe that sacrificing your own happiness proves just, how much you love someone, well, we've got a text today that says you are completely mistaken.
Yeah, not just mistaken, actually, like actively desecrating the whole concept of love.
Right, which is just a huge claim. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. Our mission today is to completely deconstruct this word we use every single day, love.
Because we spend our lives surrounded by this cultural messaging, right? That ties suffering to authentic connection.
Oh, totally. Like compromise, playing the martyr, giving up pieces of yourself.
That's the currency of romance we're all taught.
Exactly. But the source material we are looking at today claims that if you feel you've sacrificed anything at all, you have never actually experienced love.
Yeah, and the source is this really deeply philosophical text from 2011 by a writer named Feng. It's titled, "Those Who Do Not Understand Love Cannot Feel the Love of Others."
It's a mouthful, but it's such a fascinating read. And we should warn you right up front, this is not your standard relationship advice column.
No, not at all. You really have to toss out your modern, psychological understanding of relationships. He isn't giving interpersonal advice here.
Yeah, it's way bigger than that.
Right. It's this sweeping, highly spiritual cosmology. It redefines love not as a fleeting emotion or an attachment style, but as this absolute state of being.
A state of being that literally dictates your place in the universe. I mean, the scale of this framework is just astronomical.
It really sets the bar incredibly high right from the start.
It really does.
Yeah.
The text defines love as the most brilliant, beautiful, sacred, and soul-stirring thing in existence. It even says, quote, "The greatest creator himself is love."
So in this cosmology, love is literally the fundamental animating force of the universe.
Right, and the more of this force you can embody, the closer you get to the creator.
Yeah. The author actually suggests this whole hierarchical structure to consciousness. If you attain this absolute highest, purest state of love, you eventually sublimate into what he calls super celestial beings.
Super celestial beings, which, I mean, that sounds intense.
It is. Sublimation here means you're moving from a dense, ego-driven physical state into a pure, spiritual existence. You aren't just feeling an emotion anymore.
Your consciousness actually merges the essence of love itself.
Exactly.
Which, okay, let's unpack this, because that is a wildly high standard for human behavior. We aren't just talking about, like, feeling a rush of affection when your partner brings you coffee in the morning.
No, not at all. We are talking about a force that alters the nature of your existence.
Right. And that brings us to his hardest rule.
Yeah.
Love is selfless devotion without any conditions. None.
No strings, no expectations.
And absolutely no sacrifice. And I'll be honest, I find this really difficult to reconcile with reality.
Because of how we're raised.
Yes. I mean, look at all of human storytelling. Giving up your dream career so your partner can thrive. Or, a parent going hungry so their kid can eat.
Right.
We universally define these acts of self-deprivation as the highest moral proof of devotion. Isn't giving up something for someone else the ultimate romance?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the text mounts this radical counterargument to that exact instinct. It argues that true love is only filled with profound joy and bliss.
Only joy.
Yeah, because if you look at the underlying mechanics of sacrifice, it always implies a transaction.
Right.
It implies a loss.
Like you're giving something away.
Exactly. When you sacrifice something, you open a psychological ledger. Consciously or subconsciously, you've registered a deficit.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like a ledger.
And human nature dictates that we eventually seek a return on that investment, even if it's just wanting gratitude or, subconsciously making them feel guilty.
So because a ledger exists, conditions exist.
Right. And the author argues that this transactional mindset completely desecrates the sacredness of love. If you act like a martyr, you're insulting the concept entirely.
Because true selfless devotion should just feel like joy, not a loss.
Exactly. If you're operating from the state of being the text describes, giving to another person doesn't feel like a subtraction from your own life. The act of giving is its own complete reward.
So if there's any lingering resentment,
or even just a sense of having given something up,
right, then you're experiencing something else entirely, like duty or attachment, but definitely not love.
Precisely.
Man, that demands a total rewiring of how we perceive our actions. Like, if I spend my entire Saturday helping a friend move couches.
The classic test of friendship.
Right. And if I view it as a sacrifice of my precious weekend, I am so likely to hold that over their head. I'll expect them to help me next time I move.
You've opened the ledger?
I open the ledger.
Yeah.
But if I am operating from this pure state, The sheer joy of seeing my friends settled in their new place is all I need. No debt recorded.
Yeah. And because that state of unadulterated joy is so incredibly hard to achieve, the author argues that true love is actually exceedingly rare.
Which brings us to how we confuse the terminology. We mask this rarity all the time, don't we?
We really do. The text points out that people constantly substitute the word like for love. When most people say, I love you, they really just mean I like you.
And the difference between the two all comes down to this concept he calls the soul garden.
Yes, the internal landscape of a person's consciousness.
Right. And he says unequivocally, you cannot understand love if your soul garden is untended and filled with weeds.
And he's very specific about what these weeds are.
Extremely specific. He lists them out. Jealousy, comparisons, resentment, anger, selfishness, arrogance, possessiveness, controlling tendencies, and greed.
If you look at the mechanics of those specific weeds, you see exactly why they choke out true devotion. Take jealousy and comparison, for example.
Yeah, how do those work in the garden?
Well, they require this hyper-focus on the self versus the other. You're measuring your worth, your attention, your resources against external metrics.
So you're rooted in a state of lack.
And competition. But love, in this cosmology, requires the complete dissolution of that boundary.
It's like trying to plant a delicate, rare orchid, which is true love, in a patch of aggressive, thorny brambles. The soil is just already spoken for.
It's a great analogy.
It's almost about soil chemistry, right? It isn't just that jealousy takes up physical space. It fundamentally alters the pH of your internal landscape.
It makes the environment chemically hostile to the orchid.
Exactly. And what's wild to me is how modern dating culture has entirely normalized and even romanticized these weeds.
Oh, absolutely. We constantly reframe possessiveness as passion.
Right. We interpret jealousy as proof of desirability. You hear people say like, oh, they got so mad when I talked to that guy. It just shows how much they care.
But the text argues that anyone is just liking someone. Liking is a shallow state that can easily tolerate weeds. It might even thrive on control and hierarchy.
But loving someone requires an absolutely pristine internal ecosystem.
And the author does not compromise on this. As long as those weeds exist, you will, quote, never taste the essence of love.
Because your internal state dictates your capacity to experience the external emotion. You just don't have the bandwidth.
You're just experiencing transactional attachment masquerading as a cosmic force.
Okay, so he establishes that you need this pure, weed-free soul garden. But then, and this is where the text gets really intense, he takes the definition of love's essence to this absolute, almost shocking extreme.
Yes, the knife metaphor.
The knife metaphor. The text argues that the essence of love is like the object of your affection physically plunging a knife into your heart.
And instead of horror or betrayal,
Right. Instead of screaming, you find it so wonderful and comforting that you thank God for the blessing.
it is a deeply jarring image.
So what does this all mean? Because, I mean, how do we read this without seeing it as incredibly toxic or dangerous?
Yeah.
Alarm bells are ringing everywhere.
Of course they are. And the text actually anticipates the reader's resistance here. It explicitly states this is absolutely not sadism or masochism.
How does he justify that? Because it sounds exactly like that.
He argues it's not sadomasochism because the knife is wielded by the beloved, which is an experience he claims only a true lover can comprehend.
But framing violence as a blessing, I mean, come on.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to strictly distance this from literal human behavior. He isn't advocating for physical harm.
Okay.
He's using an extreme philosophical illustration to describe total ego death. It's the ultimate endpoint of the no conditions, no sacrifice rule.
Ego death. So the knife is just a metaphor for friction against the self.
Exactly. In this hypothetical extreme, your devotion is so profound and your soul garden is so devoid of self-preservation weeds that the boundary between you and them is gone entirely.
Oh, wow. So it's overriding our fundamental biological programming.
The survival instinct is our strongest drive.
Right. So to feel a knife enter your heart and feel joy, it means your attachment to your physical self has been completely superseded by your spiritual connection to them.
Yes. And remember, the beloved in this cosmology is aligned with the Creator, so interacting with them is communion with the divine.
So if the ego is dead, there's no self left to protect. A strike against you isn't an attack, it's just communion.
It's the ultimate test, it asks. If love truly has no conditions, does it survive the destruction of the lover? And his answer is yes.
Man, that strips away any illusion that love is just like comfortable companionship. It's terrifying. It's the dissolution of your identity.
It is an incredibly intense internal reality.
It really is. And once you grasp that, the text pivots to how we project this force out into the world
Yeah.
and why we have to be so careful who we offer it to.
Because declaring love is a monumental act. It's a promise.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The author says, once spoken, if it's not upheld, love becomes a heavy burden and a debt.
Which changes the weight of the words entirely. We use I love you so casually to smooth over arguments or just out of habit.
But because it's this heavy cosmic debt, he gives a strict directive. Only share love with those who actually understand it.
Right. Speaking of love to someone who doesn't understand is futile.
He says it's like trying to discuss emotions with a cow, which is just such a funny, vivid image. And it sets up this whole series of animal diet metaphors.
Yes, this is his final thesis on human connection. He uses biological incompatibilities to explain spiritual ones.
Right, like you cannot feed grass to a lion.
Or meat to a cow or a sheep.
Yeah.
And you can only feed soil to earthworms.
Right, a cow just won't process a steak.
Exactly. And he applies this directly to people. No matter how deeply or purely you love someone, if they don't understand love, they cannot feel it.
I find that so liberating for the listener. I mean, think about our assumptions. We believe that if we just love someone hard enough or show enough patience,
We can break through their walls.
yes, we treat love like a battering ram. But this diet metaphor says absorption is about internal capability, not your external force.
You cannot force an organism to process a nutrient it lacks the enzymes for.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
This raises an important question about our expectations. Because if someone's soul garden is choked with weed selfishness, arrogance, their ecosystem is incompatible with pure devotion.
So offering them selfless love is literally like offering a premium ribeye to a cow.
It won't be recognized as sustenance. It'll just be ignored or even perceived as annoying.
And how many times have we exhausted ourselves doing exactly that, draining our own resources, trying to force someone to accept devotion they just don't have the diet for?
And then we get angry when they don't respond the right way.
Exactly. But the text offers a remedy for this, doesn't it? It urges profound empathy over resentment.
It does. The author explicitly says, when your love is not understood by others, do not be angry, because anger is a weed.
Right, it corrupts your own garden.
Exactly. Instead, he frames their inability to understand as a matter of timing. They are simply going through a process of perfection.
A process of perfection, meaning they're just on their own timeline of clearing the weeds out of their landscape.
Right. So if they reject your love, it's not a flaw in your love, and it's not malicious on their part. It's just a developmental mismatch.
They might just still be tangled up in comparison or possessiveness.
The fewer weeds they have, the more they will understand. But you can't rush someone else's gardening.
You can't just rip the arrogance out of their head.
No, you can only control your own soil and recognize when the person across from you needs a different emotional diet.
Wow. So to recap this journey today, we have completely redefined love away from the cultural ideal of sacrifice, moving it toward pure, unadulterated joy. No transactional ledgers.
We talked about pulling the weeds from our soul gardens because things like jealousy chemically alter our capacity for anything beyond conditional liking.
And we survived the extreme knife metaphor, understanding it as total ego death and devotion.
And finally, realizing we cannot feed meat to a cow. We have to stop forcing our emotional frequency onto ecosystems that aren't equipped to process it.
It's a demanding framework.
Okay.
It really requires us to scrutinize our own internal purity before we start pointing out the flaws in our partners.
Absolutely. And, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We spent this whole time focusing on how we project devotion outward to others. Right. But if we turn this logic inward, think back on periods in your own life when you felt entirely unloved, when you felt isolated and alone.
Which we all go through.
We all do.
Yeah.
And our instinct is always to look outward and blame the people around us for failing to give us affection. But based on the soul garden and these animal diets, is it possible that profound devotion actually was being offered to you?
Oh, wow.
Is it possible you simply couldn't recognize it because your own soul garden was too overgrown with the weeds of comparison or a hidden desire for control?
Were you the lion being offered grass?
Or were you completely surrounded by orchids, but you were just too blinded by your own thorns to see them?
Man, that really flips it. It forces you to ask if your loneliness is a lack of external supply or just a lack of internal bandwidth.
It's a heavy question to sit with.
It really is.
Huh?
Thank you all for joining us as we navigated this incredibly complex terrain today. Keep tending to the soil of your own garden, and we will see you next time.